Some BMWs are easy to like, but only a few become impossible to replace, because every now and then, BMW built a car that was more than just a machine. A car that stayed with people long after newer, faster, and more expensive options came along. Not because it was perfect, but because it had something deeper: character, balance, identity, and the kind of ownership experience that gets under your skin. These are the BMWs people buy thinking it will just be a phase, and then years later they are still there, still loved, still compared to everything else, still parked in the garage because selling them never quite feels like the right decision. In today's video, we are counting down 3 old BMWs you buy once and never sell. These are the cars that still define what old-school BMW ownership is supposed to feel like. Let's get into it. 3. BMW E38. Starting off the list is the BMW E387 series, one of the most elegant luxury sedans BMW has ever made. This is the kind of car that never needed to be loud to make an impression. The design is long, low, clean, and incredibly well balanced. Even today, the E38 still has a level of presence that many modern luxury sedans cannot match. It looks expensive, serious, and timeless in a way that feels effortless. And that is part of what makes it so hard to sell. The E38 came from a period when BMW still knew how to make a flagship sedan feel special without overcomplicating it. It had real luxury, real road presence, and still managed to keep that unmistakable BMW driver focus underneath it all. It was comfortable, refined, and mature, but never completely disconnected from the road. That matters, because the best old BMWs are not just nice to look at. They stay with owners because they still feel right when you drive them. And the E38 absolutely does. There is a certain sense of occasion to this car that never really goes away. The seating position, the view over the hood, the atmosphere inside the cabin, the way it moves down the road, all of it reminds you that this was built in a different era. An era when flagship sedans were allowed to feel understated, mechanical, and deeply engineered. That is why so many people become attached to them. The E38 is not just a car you own. It becomes the standard you measure other luxury cars against. And once a car reaches that point, letting it go becomes much harder than expected. That is why the BMW E387 series takes the number 3 spot. 2. BMW E46 Coupe. At number 2 is the BMW E46 Coupe, one of the most loved BMWs ever built. This is one of those rare cars that almost everyone understands immediately. Even people who are not serious BMW enthusiasts can see why the E46 Coupe matters. It has the stance, the proportions, the timeless styling, and that clean, old-school BMW identity that modern cars often struggle to recapture. And once someone owns one, the attachment usually becomes very real. The E46 Coupe came from a sweet spot in BMW history. It was still compact enough to feel agile, still simple enough to feel mechanical, and still refined enough to be used every day without feeling outdated. It was sporty without being overdone, premium without being heavy-handed, and stylish without chasing trends. That balance is exactly why people hold on to them. The cabin still feels focused on the driver. The visibility is still good. The shape still looks right from every angle. And on the road, the E46 Coupe still delivers something a lot of newer cars have lost: natural feedback. It does not need fake drama or huge power figures to feel special. It just has the right ingredients. And when a BMW gets that formula right, owners tend to stay loyal. The E46 Coupe also carries a lot of emotional value. For many people, this was the BMW they admired when they were younger. The one from video games, magazine covers, street scenes, and the era when BMW felt cool without trying too hard. Then they finally buy one. And the surprising part is that it often lives up to the image. That is rare, because a lot of dream cars disappoint people in the real world. The E46 Coupe usually does the opposite. It makes owners want to keep it better, preserve it, and hold on to it longer than they expected. That is why the BMW E46 Coupe takes the number 2 spot. 1. BMW E30. Taking the top spot is the BMW E303 series. And honestly, this one feels almost inevitable. Because if there is one old BMW that perfectly represents the idea of buying a car once and never wanting to sell it, it is the E30. Compact, analog, simple, and full of character, this is the kind of BMW that creates real loyalty. The E30 has something a lot of cars spend years trying to achieve and never fully reach: purity. The size feels right, the visibility feels right, the proportions are perfect. The whole car seems built around the idea that driving should feel involving without being complicated. And that is exactly why owners never seem to get tired of them. The E30 does not overwhelm you with technology or isolate you from the road. It gives you the opposite. It gives clarity, it gives lightness, it gives that unmistakable old BMW feeling where even a normal drive can feel rewarding because the car is always talking to you. That creates a kind of bond that newer cars rarely manage. Because once someone gets used to the way an E30 feels, a lot of other cars start to seem too big, too numb, or too artificial. The E30 reminds people how enjoyable simplicity can be when it is done right. And beyond the driving experience, it also carries huge emotional weight. For some owners, it is the BMW they always wanted. For others, it is the car that represents the last truly small and honest BMW. For others, it is simply one of the most iconic sports sedans and coupes the brand ever made. Whatever the reason, the result is usually the same. Once a good E30 becomes yours, it stops feeling disposable. It becomes something you keep. That is why the BMW E303 series takes number 1. Not just because it is a great old BMW, but because it captures the exact feeling that makes a car impossible to replace. Conclusion: what makes a car stay with someone is not always speed, price, or prestige. Sometimes it is just the feeling that the car still has something no replacement can quite match. That is exactly why these BMWs matter. The E38 gives you elegance and old-school luxury that still feels special. The E46 Coupe gives you one of the most complete BMW experiences of the modern era. And the E30 gives you that raw, simple connection that made the brand legendary in the first place. These are the kinds of cars that stop being temporary purchases. After a while, they start to feel like part of the story, part of the garage, part of the reason people stay attached to the brand at all. And that is why owners keep coming back to them or never let them go in the first place. Now, I want to hear your answer. Which old BMW would you keep forever? And if there is one that belongs on this list, write it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to AutoScope for more content on classic German cars, timeless BMWs, and the old-school machines that still feel worth owning today.